The psychedelic revolution is here. If you want to integrate your visionary experiences into your purpose, get clear on your entrepreneurial path, and help people while you do what you love, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur, Medicine for These Times. I'm your host, Beth Weinstein. I'm a spiritual business coach, 3-time entrepreneur, and a lifelong student of psychedelics and sacred plant medicines. You carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times. This podcast will help you to share your medicine so you can create transformation in the world. Listen in on conversations with psychedelic leaders, changemakers, and conscious entrepreneurs who are living proof that a better world is possible when you follow your heart and live in alignment with your soul. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Psychedelic Entrepreneur. Today, I'm so excited to have a special guest, Jemie Ku. Am I pronouncing it right, first of all?
Yes.
So, Jemie, I love featuring women working in psychedelics, especially I really love your background. It's somewhat similar to mine on this path of corporate and startup. I'll tell people a little bit about you in case they don't know your background. So Jemie's had more than 15 years of extensive digital and marketing experience, including successful brand planning and viral campaigns for global brands like Amazon, Disney, Coca-Cola, Toyota, Salesforce, and YouTube. As a serial entrepreneur, Jemie designs projects rooted in corporate social responsibility. She leverages her consumer insights, data, and analytics to sustainably scale businesses efficiently and effectively, resulting in the creation of industry-first new business totaling over 250 million. Jemie holds a bachelor's from UC Irvine, where actually a really good friend of mine went, and in international studies and sociology with a minor in business management, and is currently working on her master's degree in psychology at the California Institute of Integral Studies, otherwise known as one of the few places that have psychedelic therapy training. Jemie serves on the executive board of the American Heart Association and enjoys travel, cooking, yoga, hiking, and meditation. So Jemie, I always love to start with your own story. What brought you here to where you are now? And of course, first of all, tell people, what are you up to right now? What is it that you do besides a master's degree on top of everything else?
Yeah. Well, I think what would be helpful is really giving you a little bit more of my background, which really leads into what I'm working in today. So, while I've had the good fortune to work with some really big brands and experience successes, it also got me really sick. And to really put it bluntly, psychedelic medicine saved my life. I grew up in poverty with a father who was incredibly abusive, was an alcoholic. And at the age of 9, he was taken away by the police. And while my mom was working 4 to 5 jobs, struggling to make ends meet for us, as the eldest of the family, I really never had a childhood. And for me, I took the responsibility as being another parent for my 2 younger brothers, and really dealt with the trail of devastation that my father left behind. And subsequently, I was also placed on various forms of SSRIs that did not help me feel better. If anything, it made it worse. So fast forward to around 5 years ago, I was head of marketing for a management consulting firm based in LA. And I was not only the youngest, I was the only female and only minority on the executive leadership team. And after 2 years, I got really sick. I had mysterious symptoms come up, like globs of my hair was falling out. I was waking up in the middle of the night in a puddle of sweat. I'm the type of person that works out. I barely even break out in sweat. I developed brain fog to where I couldn't even formulate a sentence, let alone remember the next word I was going to say. And looking back as far as I could recall, I was always sort of this high functioning depressive person. And I just thought that was normal. And when these symptoms arose, I plummeted into the depths of depression, where I lost all sense of purpose to life. I quite frankly didn't see the reason to continue living on. And at this point, I had spent tens of thousands of dollars seeing Western medical doctors who ran a ton of blood tests and said that I checked out normal. And I'm like, this isn't normal. Something is seriously wrong here. And then in a span of 1 week, I had two people in different parts of my life share with me how ayahuasca transformed their lives. And this is at a point in my life where I've always been a very straight-laced person. I've never done any drugs. I didn't even know what drugs look like. I have never even been drunk, even to this day. So I've kept it really clean. And my big epiphany was really, I had nothing to lose at this point. So 2 days later, I was on a flight to Costa Rica where I sat with ayahuasca for 4 nights and it saved my life. And not only did it save my life, it gave me a renewed sense of purpose that in everything that I do is to be in service. And the fact that it's this medicine saved my life. This is a big part of my work. This is the very reason why I'm still here today. So
My God.
for me, it's been I think one thing that's really powerful to also mention is that since doing ayahuasca for the first time, I haven't been depressed since. And so,
Amazing. Amazing.
um, so for the past 5 years, I've been really trying to figure out how to solve some really big problems in this space. So, fast forward to end of last year, I started pursuing my master's degree in psychology at the California Institute of Integral Studies with a specific focus around psychedelic assisted therapy. And then in January of this year, my co-founder Matt Zeman and I connected, and the similarities in our stories and our thought process was absolutely uncanny. And we started asking ourselves, how can we leverage all of our corporate, startup, nonprofit, governmental experience and really bring into the space to be in service and make a difference? And so that brings us to today. And the reason why Psychable is so special to me is that it represents a merging of so many of my life's passions, right? From expanding access to life-changing psychedelic medicines to helping people live happier, healthier, thriving lives, and growing a business from the ground up. And more importantly, giving back to indigenous communities across the world whose knowledge of these medicines goes back generations. And I've personally, had a profound and transformative experience with psychedelic medicine. And so it's now my personal mission, which has also become Psychable's business mission, which is to provide even more people an opportunity to experience the healing potential of psychedelic medicines.
My heart is so lit up. First of all, I honor you for taking that plunge to go drink ayahuasca 4 nights in a row, or 4 times within whatever it is, without having done anything. I'm always very shocked when I meet someone who's done that. And of course, I actually was on a dieta in Peru once, and someone's like, "Oh, I've never done any hallucinogenic anything." I'm like, wow, that is a lot especially to go fly somewhere like that and do it. But this is the beauty of this medicine. It's completely, totally transformed lives. And I love what you are up to with your mission to bring this out to more people. I mean, this is a huge part of my own mission too, is that it saved my life so much. I have this little tattoo right here it's an ayahuasca with the chacruna leaves. And I mean, it's a very similar story. I actually, just so you know, oddly, I had a mystery illness back in 2013 that I was just telling someone about it last night. And I was like, to this day, no one ever knew what happened. It went on for 6 months. I spent so much money on every doctor there was. And it cleared up after I made this conscious decision where I was like, I want to live, because something was actually going on in my brain and it was affecting my brain. And then I got onto the medicine path on a new, deeper level, and my whole life turned around. So I don't know. It's one of those things. But let's hear a little more about Psychable. So I first heard about it, I think just a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, we launched just a few months ago
yeah,
too.
was that it? Okay, okay.
Yeah,
And
it actually launched
yeah.
on April 19th, which happened to be
Wow.
Bicycle Day, and that
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
even planned in that respect. So that was pretty
Synchronous.
synchronistic. Yeah.
Yeah, tell people about it. I think I have a profile up on there. I'm pretty sure. If not, I'll put it up soon. But yeah, what is the goal of it? And I love this.
Yeah. Yeah, at the baseline, the intention was to really bring individuals, on the path of their healing journeys, or they wanted to, optimize in their lives with and match them with psychedelic assisted therapy practitioners, and to do it in the way that really, I think is around integrity and trust and safety, which is so foundational to this work. And for me, when I first did the medicine, I didn't even know integration was a thing.
Yeah.
It was really 2 years of me feeling my way through the dark and, asking people, knowing the right, handshake or, secret word for me to even get introduced to folks that could support me. And it's like, why is this so hard? And there's so much faith and trust that goes into it. And this isn't child's play. This is serious work, as you know. And so it is so important that we, yes, people are accessing the medicine, and that's one piece of it. And integration is a large part of it, right? And the way I metaphorically compare this to is, think about one of the biggest days of your life, like your wedding day. It's very ceremonious, it's so profound, it's so memorable, it's one of the happiest, most transformative days of your life. And then guess what? The next day, that's when the hard work starts.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where the integration piece comes in, is how are you showing up on a day-to-day, really committed to doing the hard work and fully integrating all of your experiences that you have witnessed while being on the medicine, and how do you really incorporate that to your day-to-day life and continue to evolve as a human being?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought up integration. I'm laughing. We talk about it a lot here on this podcast and all the summits I've ever done. And I actually have a lot of clients who are becoming integration coaches or doing different forms of like somatic therapies and somatic integration work around, medicine and psychedelics. Even my own experience, I had been working with psychedelics for 25, 30 years, didn't even understand the concept. Thankfully, I've always had, other practices, daily meditation, pretty much always worked with a therapist or somatic therapist. But I remember this one moment coming back from Peru where shit just really hit the fan. And I was like, I think I need help dealing with what I just went through. It was just so life-changing and profound. And then on top of it, my life was changing so much. And yes, this conversation thankfully is coming up so much lately. I'm curious, as a platform, is Psychable going to provide, a place for people to find therapists and integration help as well? Like what's the vision for it, with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, our platform is really the first of its kind. So it's providing we have thousands of global listings of practitioners. They are licensed therapists to MDs to nurse practitioners, to prescribers to unlicensed guides and sitters. So it spans and runs the gamut, right? And really, the way we have approached this is always being community led, community driven. And what I mean by that, a really great comparison is think of Yelp for psychedelics.
Yeah.
So what you are able to do is come onto the platform. You can enter in the location of where you live, and then the system will populate a directory of all of the practitioners, licensed and unlicensed, in the area near you. And then within each of their respective profiles, it goes deep. I mean, it goes deep into their training,
Good.
even if like they have experience with certain medicines, the lineages that they've been studying under, their level of cultural sensitivities, which are a lot. There's a lot of nuances there, as you know, and then reviews that are, again, user generated. So really what I would say is to invite everyone who has experience with these practitioners to go on our site, to leave a review, because that's really where we can start fostering the trust, and really create that trust network. And that's one component of it. The other component is we also have hundreds of proprietary articles written by subject matter experts that have been medically reviewed, that is also consumer friendly. When I first started on this journey, I did a quick Google search and I found information that was super scientific and really woo-woo.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to really distill it down to its essence. And, for somebody who's not feeling well, like the last thing you have is energy to even put into something like this, right? So we really kept that in mind, and wanted to make it information accessible and easy to read, easy to understand, and where it really lands for people, in terms of where they're at. And then the last component of the site is, we have a whole community section that allows members to contribute to the forums, and also message one another, and also practitioners one-on-one on a safe and encrypted platform.
Ooh,
And then
encrypted.
also want to also mention that everything on our site is legal. So we work
That's
with
what my next
two.
question was.
Yeah, we work with two full-time attorneys that are 100% dedicated to the psychedelic medicine space. And so under their guidance, we wanted to make sure that everything was under the legal constructs. And as you may know,
Yeah.
but a lot of Americans still don't know to this day, that the only psychedelic medicine that is currently available in the US is ketamine. And so for us, it's really trying to generate as much awareness around this as possible, and really educate people, so they can make the most informed decisions for themselves.
Yeah, wow, this sounds great. First of all, I'm very glad it's encrypted. I think that's very important for so many people concerned about their privacy and obviously the risks and the legality. Now I'm curious, because this comes up in my business constantly, right? Like I help clients who are doing facilitation work on some level. No one I work with is just a facilitator, so that's not what I do. But I do have clients who are coaches who might then work with their client on, I don't know, microdosing or, go do this psilocybin. No one gives it out and no one sells it. So that's not part of the deal. But I'm curious if someone is, because we all know, I'm always very like, look, let's be truthful here. It's everywhere. And the demand is very high. The accessibility is very low because of the legality. And we all know this is changing very quickly, thankfully. But the reality is there are underground training programs or training programs. There's going and studying in other countries. What about someone who is doing, one-on-one psilocybin work to help people, or MDMA to help people with their whatever it is, PTSD or depression? And yeah, let's say it's not ketamine. Are they able to use this platform? And then what do we do about, are the authorities watching and gonna like knock on their door one day? I'm a believer in they have better things to do than that. But I'm curious, like, and I'm curious if this has come up with investors as well. I'm sure. Yeah.
That's
How do
a
you
really
handle
great
that?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So today, any practitioner can list themselves on our site. again, as long as it is legal. So what does
Mm.
that look like? So if you are a guide or a sitter, that's the services that you list. The
Hmm.
site does not procure anything that is illegal, and that's really
Hmm.
important. And we closely monitor that as well, because we want to stay in integrity
Yeah.
with respect to the current legal constructs, and we want to keep people safe.
Yeah.
Healers and the folks that are looking for help, right?
Mm.
So yeah, that I would say, just really being, I think for healers and practitioners coming on our site, it's just being cognizant as to how you are listing your
Yeah.
services. We also, in our Learn section, we had our attorneys actually write out a whole article for specifically practitioners and healers, and really guiding them on how best to offer their
Mm.
services to those in
Oh.
need.
Oh, good. I'm going to send that to a lot of people because I've actually had clients ask me, do you know of an attorney who, I mean, even when I was about to do one of my first summits, I was like, do I need to consult an attorney? I'm not doing anything illegal, but it felt very scary,
Mm-hmm.
and this was
Mm-hmm.
years ago. Thankfully now, it's a little more mainstream and I think people are a little less afraid, but of course this comes up. I have a client who wants to open up a center. She lives in a
Mm.
place where it's becoming decriminalized, but we all know there's still so much red tape. It's not really, it's not the freedom for all as we know it yet. I'm
Yeah, and
curious. Yeah.
and to your point, decriminalization is not legalization,
Yeah,
right? And
true.
there
Exactly.
is a key distinction
Yeah.
around that. And this is where, again, the awareness and education piece is so important. Decriminalization is an important step forward on the
Yeah.
path to legalization. And decriminalization generally means that arrest, investigation, and prosecution for the possession of certain psychedelics becomes a low priority for law enforcement.
Hmm.
However, it doesn't mean that psychedelics are legal or are approved for medical use. And the only thing, again, that is medically legal in the US
Yeah.
today is ketamine.
Yeah.
Um, and certainly, I think it's important to also mention that there are psychedelics such as MDMA and psilocybin that are used legally in FDA approved clinical
Yeah.
research and trials to treat patients in clinical settings.
Yeah.
And there also is, under the Right to Try Act. Therefore, that is for patients with immediate life-threatening diseases and conditions who can petition for with drug developers to access investigational substances.
Mm.
And lastly, there's also the Religious Freedom Restoration
Yeah.
Act, where certain individuals can use psychedelics such as ayahuasca as a religious sacrament, to exercise their sincere faith, right?
Yeah.
So, however, this type of use is not without risks or exposure to potential prosecution.
Exactly. I know. And it's we're all going to be navigating this for a while and it's unfortunate cuz yeah, the people that I've sat with in the US practice under the Religious Freedom Act, but then that's not truly protected, at least not especially not where I live in New York. It's like the last state to take these things on. But I'm curious, as someone who's raising money to grow this business, what is because the first thing I said to Jemie when we got on before we record, I said, oh, people must be throwing money at you now because psychedelics is blowing up. And I'm curious, you're on the front lines of working with venture capital, investors, probably angels. I'm curious what the truth is out there because there's a group of people, I'm not one of them. There's a group of people who are like, oh my God, the VCs are going to ruin psychedelics. Like the rich people who are going to patent everything. And I'm like, look, guys, I have faith that it's not going to be like bad. But yeah, what's the feeling of, the reception that investors and kind of the world that you're in, like the whole startup world, what are they having? Like, are people excited or still freaked out a
Mm-hmm.
little?
Yeah, I love this question. And what comes up to me first and foremost, from a spiritual perspective, is the medicine will take care of itself.
That's what I think.
And we like to think that we are in control, but we're not. So
Ego.
yeah, I love this question for so many reasons. For entrepreneurs thinking a lot about raise and just pondering this question, I highly recommend that everyone check out the North Star Ethics Pledge.
Amazing.
They have
Yep.
put a lot of thought into these questions and this space, and they have 7 core principles. And just as an example, to name a few: create equality and justice, and look for places to make the world a better place. There's also study the traditions and respect the history of those that came before us. And then also one big one is really considering the gravity of our choices, right? And to your point, there appears to be a lot of capital to deploy today. And you can raise money if you have a solid plan and a great team. And Matt, my co-founder, and I have been really thinking a lot through this. The question is, can you raise it from people who share your vision?
Value, yeah.
Your vision for accessibility, for affordability, and the margins are such that it can still, you can still have a very healthy business and stay true to your core vision. And we believe that by doing this, business will scale faster and larger than not. And we've met fat funders and investors who are aligned with this, and a couple who are not. And so yeah, I think this also crosses into just the intersectionality of psychedelics and business and it having purpose, right? And I think for us as entrepreneurs in psychedelics, our job is to be tech enabled healers. So what does that mean, and what does the business model look like, right? So we've been thinking a lot about, okay, how can we make the medicine more accessible and done with integrity and done with excellence and really establishing what that gold star standard looks like. And so a couple things are like, packages with transparent pricing, making it for people to say yes. And if you are a great healer, free up your time to heal. And if you're a great entrepreneur, focus on marketing and leveraging technology for safety, consistency, and support. So really, what do entrepreneurs need to think about using technology to enable things such as like ketamine therapy, safety, consistency, access and scalability, holistic experiences, really incorporating the mental health, spirituality components, the cognitive behaviors, the mindfulness, alongside of delivery of the medicine. Right. And so when it comes to psychedelic assisted therapy, for us, in our opinion, is that this isn't really a place to build a moat around your business. With so many millions of people who are suffering and in need of healing in the US, just the US alone today, we can operate from a spirit of abundance and not scarcity. And there's just plenty of room for companies in the space. And one of the analogies I like to use is like the coffee analogy. There's a Starbucks, there's a coffee bean, there's a Peet's Coffee, right? So there's just room, and yeah, we hope to be of service, right? We hope to be of help, and Matt and I we make ourselves available to assist anyone any way we can. And so if you're listening to this and your mission is aligning with helping more people get access to legal psychedelic therapy, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And we are here to be of service.
Yes, I love, you mentioned a couple of my favorite topics because, of course, and I'm sure you guys have maybe gotten some what I call the haters, and if you haven't yet, you will.
No,
I
we
can
have for
guarantee it.
sure.
Yeah, I get.
Everyone has their own
I know.
opinions,
I'm
right?
like, I actually love getting them now. I'm like, ooh, cool, like fuel. Because there's been the critique around these medicines are not for this or that, or, and I'm like, that's totally a scarcity mindset. I believe that the medicine has its own agenda. Like, there's a reason why it has grown exponentially fast in our lifetime in the last few generations, is that the world needs this more than ever. I don't know one person without any kind of intergenerational trauma. I mean, our whole society is traumatized, and like exactly what you said, it's like there's so many people who need this, who could use it, who can benefit, but it's not getting to them yet. And so I completely agree, and I also love that you mentioned technology enabled, because I, for many, many, many years, have gotten downloads about the beauty and like the whole point of technology and why we have it today, and we're able to use it in a way like never before and connect like mycelium. And it's to me, I know there's definitely there's always a dark side to every light, but to me, it's such a benefit, and it's like, yes, why not help heal people? I mean, if we didn't have ways to communicate or ways to find out about things or ways to interconnect, like how would we ever get the medicine or the integration help or the therapist? Most of my therapists that I've worked with over the last whatever it's been now, like 10 years or 6, 7, 8, 9, we've all been working remotely regardless, way before COVID. So we couldn't do that without technology. So I'm glad you brought this up. Now, one thing you did mention, I do want to ask about is and I really honor you for bringing this up, the North Star Agreement, and honoring, the indigenous communities or the origins of this medicine, and the reciprocity and the acknowledgement, because I think that's one of the biggest fears out there, is that this is going to be just, more pillaging of, the resources. And the more that I mean, I've heard so many different theories of like, okay, the more that we capitalize on this whole psychedelic movement, the less there's going to be available for even the tribes or the indigenous communities that work with certain medicines. I don't really see it becoming an issue, but everyone's trying to figure it out. So you mentioned this. I'm curious, how is this built into your business model somehow, or how does honoring the origins, how does that play in?
I really love this question. And yes, from day one, it has been a core part of the way we have approached this work. And as medicines are becoming more and more destigmatized, it is important to work with our indigenous communities to ensure sustainability.
Mhm.
And like I said, reciprocity and advocacy has been built into Psychable's DNA from day one.
Mhm.
And one of the key elements is the social responsibility portion of it. And for us, it was really, okay, what are the great organizations and nonprofits that are doing great work in this space?
Mhm.
And so we started thinking about that first. Obviously, the biggest player is MAPS, the
Mhm.
Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. So for 30 years, Rick Doblin and his team has been really trailblazing and have led this psychedelic movement. And on a less well-known side, I would call out Heroic Hearts Project. And this
Mhm.
organization raises money for veterans with PTSD and sends them to places where they can legally heal with ayahuasca,
Amazing.
psilocybin, and ketamine. And there's also another nonprofit called Fireside.
Mhm.
They provide real time psychedelic support. And Josh and his team has been really offering a tremendous service to those doing the work in this community. And then Chacruna is
Mhm.
another really wonderful nonprofit and organization that we really admire. They add the cultural understanding component and really promotes that bridge between ceremonial use of sacred plants and psychedelic science. And I would also be remiss if I didn't call out some of the academic institutions that are also doing great work. So
Mm-hmm.
we have Dr. Roland Griffiths and Matthew Johnson,
Mm,
alongside with the whole team at Johns Hopkins that are just producing a tremendous body of great research. Robin Carrot Harris
mm,
out of Imperial College of London and now at UCSF has also been quite the leader in the space.
mm,
And there's other colleagues who are establishing psychedelic centers and programs such as Berkeley, Harvard, NYU, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and Mass General in New York, just to name a few.
mm,
And of course, where I'm also pursuing my master's degree in psychology at the California Institute of Integral Studies, where they have a center of psychedelic therapies and research that's led by Professor Janice Phelps.
mm. Ah, so good. Thank you for acknowledging everyone. There's just such incredible work going on out there, and thankfully, this is, this is where I feel really good about the future. But I'm curious, with you guys as this business, that clearly it's going to expand probably very fast, I would think, because this whole, I hate to even call it an industry, but this whole field of psychedelics and psychedelic assisted therapy is moving very fast, like many things on this planet. What this comes up a lot is, what do you see as becoming, a concern for the future, or something to constantly pay attention to? Or, I'm curious, like, even what's in your future plan as a company, for expansion. And there's always been a lot of concerns about making sure that the whole psychedelic field scales, in an effective way that doesn't get, jammed up. But there's a lot of, I mean, I don't know much about the whole cannabis industry, but there's a lot of problems that came up in cannabis that people don't want to repeat now in psychedelics. But
Yeah,
yeah, I'm
yeah.
curious, like, what has come up about the future of this industry for you guys?
hmm Yeah, this is a very rich question to unpack, and I also very much appreciate this question. First and foremost, there just hasn't been any major changes or innovation in mental health in over 5 decades, and it is
Mm,
time. And the future is first in how we live out our values and through our action.
mm,
And so, as entrepreneurs, our job is to solve problems. And some of the problems that keep me up at night are one: nearly 1 in 5 Americans have a mental health condition, yet more than half do not get the
mm,
treatment or support that they need.
mm,
We have also 33% of adults reporting symptoms of anxiety and depression, especially coming out of the pandemic.
mm-hmm.
And in 2019, almost 50,000 Americans died by suicide.
Oh my
And there's an
God.
estimated 1.38 million suicide attempts annually.
Mm,
So what is next for psychedelic medicine? And so for the short term, I can answer it in 2 words: awareness and education.
mm,
And in the US, we know that ketamine is legal, and many of the professionals are working in this space utilizing ketamine to work with patients suffering from a number of challenges, anything ranging from depression to anxiety to chronic pain. And so, for the next 2 to 3 years or so, given that ketamine is the only psychedelic option available for most Americans without needing to hop on a plane or getting into a clinical trial, that's really the space that we're focusing in on right now.
mm-hmm.
And so, our perspective is that Psychable and hopefully a number of other organizations will work to get legal psychedelic assisted therapy to the masses. We know that the healthcare system is broken. We know that many people, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, our family members are in pain. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just an enormous opportunity for healing and thriving.
Mm,
And so, what really fuels us at the end of the day is that there is a legal psychedelic medicine available today. And so for us, we envision a world where everyone has access to the power of psychedelic therapy to support them on their journey for healing and for thriving. And one of the other things I wanted to also mention is that Jason Silva, who I think you
mm-hmm.
know, has been such a proponent for Psychable and really
Good.
touts it as the trusted psychedelic trusted network. And in one of the videos where he talks about Psychable, he mentions that there is a psychedelic revolution that's happening in parallel to mental health
Yeah.
and the epidemic around it. 800,000 people are dying by suicide every year, according to the World Health Organization. And that's a large number than any amount of people who die from natural disasters or on conflict combined. We are in a war against mental illness, and there is a psychedelic revolution happening. And concurrently, now that psychedelics have this capacity that seemingly resets ourselves, Robin Harris talks about the mental pivotal states, which is, these psychedelic medicines open us up to these unique states of increased suggestibility, where even the person in the throngs of the most treatment resistant depression and anxiety can all of a sudden be reconstituted and be relieved. And so we might think of these medicines as medicines that address the fracturing of the psyche. But then again, doing these things open us up to pivotal mental states of increased suggestibility. That's a very delicate space. And Jason compares it to like an open heart surgery of the psyche, that is literally taking place. And we shouldn't kid ourselves that there doesn't need to be guardrails. There absolutely needs to be guardrails. There absolutely needs to be protocols and procedures needed to connect people with psychedelics and those who are trained with psychedelic, therapy, and those who are vetted, those who are trustworthy, and those who have a moral compass, and who are not going to introduce their own baggage to the patient or the client in such a highly suggestible state. So really, what Jason talks about is a need for a trustworthy space where psychedelic and therapy comes together to protect those that are in need, those that we are serving, and especially those who are in the throngs of mental distress, who could be also taken advantage by charlatans. And this is hugely important. So that's what we at Psychable has really created and fostered, which is a psychedelic trust network.
Yeah, that's so good that you mentioned, taking advantage of, and when you're in a highly susceptible state. This has come up before when I've interviewed people over the years about, even me, someone who I thought was like this pro who's been at this for a very long time. Even I've had some pretty bad experiences that, I went through kind of like someone I knew, but, didn't really know much. And one of those things where it was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe, I guess. And what might work for one person really might not work for you. And that's why the education becomes so important. There's especially with these very powerful medicines, you have to feel that level of trust. So I'm so glad Jason's speaking about this as well. But you mentioned that, the mental health crisis, which is, exactly what I said, that I do believe that these medicines have grown in popularity. At the same time, a lot of our collective trauma is surfacing, on such extreme levels. And I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. I don't think this was just the pandemic. I think it's the state of the entire world and, what we're all going through.
It's
and
not sustainable.
Yeah. There's so much. And this is the one thing that's been very heartbreaking to me. I'm a business coach. I don't give people psychedelics, but I'm listed on the MAPS integration resources list. And at least like once a month, I get someone randomly emailing me asking like, where can I go? I can't find anybody. I need to send my, son's friend who lives here and who's suicidal. It's a very helpless feeling because I can't really, I'm like, I personally, as someone who works in this field, I don't even know where to begin. Like me and a friend were talking. I was like, I don't even know where to begin sending someone and I live right outside of New York City, essentially. And I don't even know where to go, and I'm curious. especially because you're in grad school for this. Do you feel, and I remember I asked Rick about this, Rick Doblin, I think last year, but do you feel that there's going to be an increase in providers over the next couple of years? Because the demand is very high and the supply of providers seems low. And then I know it's like not everybody is a licensed therapist, and I do know there's prescribers, but then even then I know someone who needs this but can't find a prescriber and doesn't know where to go, and it's like kind of this complex. People want to start talking to their regular GP doctors,
Who
but then
don't
if your
have a
doctor is
clue.
not
Yeah.
open-minded, if your doctor doesn't know or is like,
Yeah.
what,
Yeah.
especially the majority of people do not live in progressive areas with doctors that maybe actually work with psychedelics or know about it. So what do you think, like, what's the trajectory for the future of getting more providers, especially ones that maybe aren't necessarily like, like getting, like, again, I'm like, I only know of like 2 psychedelic assisted therapy training programs, and that's such a limitation. So what do you think the solution is for this in the future?
Yeah, what comes up for me immediately is there was a recent New York Times article that came out talking about how psychedelic schools are popping up like mushrooms, and so it's indeed happening. There are more and more healers really answering the call. They are receiving the message from the medicine, and they are showing up to be in service, to be helpers in this
Mhm.
space. And so I am confident that there is a underswelling of healers currently being trained, and they may not be coming out of the woodworks right now, but
Yeah.
they will. And
Yeah.
and again, this is where Psychable has come in to really be in service to the practitioners. Right now, it's free for practitioners to use. It's free for anyone who's really looking on starting this journey or has been on this journey to use for free.
Mhm.
And so I think there's a few steps to take in consideration. First, with respect to this work, is preparation, the ceremony, and integration.
Mhm.
So for preparation, if you're completely new, I would recommend that you go to psychable.com and you click on the learn section first. And that's really, again, where you can go to educate yourself with and just arm yourself to make the most informed decision. And to your point, I really love that you said this, and I want to reemphasize this, is that there's just not a one size fits all solution to healing. There just
No.
isn't. And our belief is that every one of us has our own internal intelligence on how to heal ourselves,
Mhm.
right? And so yeah, I would say, really arming yourself with the education. And on our site, you'll find hundreds of articles and videos on everything psychedelic and therapy. And really, that's a great place to start. And it will help you with what's called the set and setting.
Mhm.
And once you've done your research and you've found the medicine that you feel called towards, we would recommend that you look for somebody to do the pre-work with you. And that's really the preparation before you go into the
Mm.
medicine. And for the step, we recommend that you find a professional to support you in setting your intention and preparing you for the medicine. And this can be, in form of a licensed psychologist or a therapist, or it can be even an experienced guide.
Mhm.
And to find these, you can search from our homepage of psychable.com and find somebody you can connect with that is nearest you. And then when it comes to ceremony itself, in some states, you can find trip sitters who are able to legally provide peer support during your experience.
Mm.
And by doing the pre-work and by having a guide or a trip sitter with you during your experience, you have radically reduced your chances of having any sort of, quote, bad experience or journey. And in the event that you are by yourself and you are having a bad experience, and again, this is not all what we recommend, but it does happen.
Yeah.
There is a fantastic free peer support resource that I had mentioned previously
Yeah.
called the Fireside Project. where you can call them for free. And you can just Google Fireside Project. And I think their support line is also on their website, and it's also on our website too. In I think it's in the learn section as well as our community forum section. And so, don't be afraid to ask questions on our community forum at Psychable. And after your experience, you also you go into the integration phase, right? And again, we highly recommend that you find a professional to support you through that. That's where the biggest and largest part of the work starts. And the biggest ask that I have for the community and for anyone listening is really please post a review for the people that you use, for the practitioners that you have been experienced with on Psychable. And this is really how we start building that trust network, and is so critical for our community.
Yes. And I want to recap for our listeners the importance of integration, because that's exactly what you said. The real healing comes through the integration work. I mean, that's what I have found in the thousands. I mean, Lord knows how many times I've drank ayahuasca at this point, or done mushrooms, or any of the synthetics. It's the day to day. It's the getting support. Like, I personally am like, how is anyone living in today's day and age without some sort of support? I don't know. Because I haven't gone without support in my life for at least the last 10, 15 years. So, but Jemie, I was curious, two things. I would love to know what's next for Psychable, but also for you. I mean, you're in grad school, you're starting up a business. I'm sure it's crazy. Please don't tell me you're working for other people as well. Are you still in corporate or okay?
No, I am 100% devoted to Psychable, and also we I believe that in my studies with my graduate degree, it really helps support the integrity and the work that we need to do at Psychable.
I'm curious, do you intend on becoming a psychedelic assisted therapist one day, maybe? Or like part-time?
I we'll see what the future holds. I am still going to do the training of it. Again, what's really crucial and critical in this work is, how do we set the gold star standard?
Yeah.
Right. And how do I as a leader help set that if I don't have the right kind of training or exposure, or even walk the walk and talk the talk, right? And how could I really bridge the gap between those who are helping and in the helping profession with those that are in need of the services, right? So for me, it's really important that I am the embodiment of this work. And so, for me, I am committed to this work. This is very much my life's work. This is my dharma. This is why I'm here.
This why you were given your journey.
Yes. Yes. This is why I'm still here today. Right. And for us, I think the baseline of all of it is, what is our core principles? Because that's what will guide us, right? And so for us, Matt and I have built enough companies to where we know that, as founders, we don't, if you don't have clear values, and if you don't hire people who embody those values, the company will not have a single unified direction. And it will fail very quickly. Yes, right. Exactly. So for us, there's 4 core values that we embody from our board to the leadership team, to our investors, to our employees, to our contractors, to understand these values at their core. And those are, number 1, the right understanding. We are here to help people heal and explore by connecting them with the right practitioners who can support them. 2, the right view. We look at things without ego. And we recognize we don't know it all. Right? We don't know all the answers. And the 3rd thing is the right speech. We use appropriate, accurate language that is not intended to harm. Do no harm. And then the last one, the fourth is right effort, right actions.
Mm.
So
Mm.
our actions are to further Psychable's mission because the company mission is in line with our own personal mission,
Mm.
right? So we make an effort to make sure that everyone who works with us is aware of the North Star ethics pledge that I mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking even with somebody earlier who said this quite nicely. We are not just building a company for a return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
We are building a company for a return on humanity.
Yeah. Ah.
And I believe we can do both, but that when it comes to healing and psychedelics and bettering the world, there are a number of items for all of us to be aware of.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yes. And I actually, well, it's very aligned with me and how I teach my clients. And actually, my 2 summits, the tagline is integrating visionary experiences into conscious entrepreneurship. Because I truly believe, because I worked for one of the worst corporate companies on the face of this planet. It wasn't Walmart, but it was very close. And so I've seen it all. And I
Yeah, I think
knew,
we've been
yeah,
there. Yep. I
like
I understand.
I truly believe the money, the true return, like when you said true return on humanity, the real abundance and money actually does come through this space of mission. Because my friend that I had
Yes.
mentioned to you, I have a good friend who's a billionaire. And he
Mm-hmm.
has always been mission driven. Always, always, always.
Mm.
Just like he's out to change part of our society, and he has done extremely well. And it's having values. This is actually something I teach to my clients. It's one of the very first steps I have them do is really tap into like, what is your larger scale mission for the world? Not just you making money, helping people. It's like, what do you want to see change on the planet? And that's
Mm-hmm.
where it's all connected. And this is, to me, this is the future of all business. Like
Yes.
I interviewed David Bronner of Dr. Bronner's, and I'm like, thankfully more and more startups and companies are seeing this. It's the old paradigm is not working anymore. We have to
Correct.
have, everything in balance and harmony with humanity and the earth in order to have a sustainable planet and sustainable
Yes.
businesses that actually give in all directions. So,
Yes. Yes.
Jamie,
Mutual
I
reciprocity.
know, this
And
is
if I
so
can leave you with
awesome.
this
Yeah,
one
yeah.
last thing, you asked what's next for Psychable,
Yeah, yeah.
so for us, we're working to find ways to actually enable visitors to Psychable,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to actually book appointments and get access to
Ooh,
psychedelic medicine right from our site.
that'd be
So with
great.
ketamine legal in all 50 states, it is possible right now. So we're working on finding a solution and solving that very quickly. And one of the things that I want to leave everybody with today is that there is an ancient prophecy that is shared by many indigenous people. And the prophecy says that when the eagle of the North America,
Mm,
which is the path of the mind, industry, and masculine, and the condor of South America, which is the path of the heart, the
mm-hmm.
intuition, the feminine, when both unite, the
Yeah.
earth will awaken. And so
Happening.
now is the time. So join us as stewards and good citizens in this community together as one.
Mm.
And we really want to just close here by putting a stake on the ground and really proclaim that we intend to lead by example and through our actions, by doing this work in integrity, in excellence, and setting the gold star standard.
Mm.
And again, it is time,
Yeah.
and we have to come together united as one. We humans may see ourselves as belonging to one nation or one culture or another, but in the final analysis,
Yeah.
we are all citizens of this living earth,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it is time for the eagle and the condor, the mind and the heart, to soar together, to come together, to merge, to birth this new shift towards higher consciousness, this new
Mm-hmm.
way of being, right? And so, after all, Ram Dass says it so beautifully.
Yeah.
We are all just walking each other home.
Mm. Oh, Jemie, I'm about to cry. Oh, thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful closure. And I want to honor you for being a woman in the psychedelic industry as well, especially dealing with investors. And who knows what that's like these days. But back when I was dealing with them, different world. So thank you for this amazing work you do. And I'm so excited for everybody to check out Psychable and share it around and get their profiles up there and start using it and see where this takes off. Awesome. So good to have you here. And we'll have all of your links and Psychable's links in the show notes and on the website so everybody can access it, and keep following you guys and see what comes about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beth. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for all the wonderful work that you do.
Thanks. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you're feeling inspired, I'd appreciate it if you showed your love with a review. And check out my YouTube channel where you can find the video version of this podcast. You can also head to bethaweinstein.com to learn more about me and grab my free business growth trainings. Remember, you carry your own unique medicine, and your medicine is what we need for these times.